My name is John Lin from Berkeley Historical Society. Today, we're very fortunate to have both Jim and Floyd Huen to join us, talk with their family. They're live in Berkeley. So Jim, I'm going to turn to you first. Tell me a little bit about your father, where he was born, and how he began his service in U.S. Navy.
Yes, my father was born in 1910, and he was born in a village about 120 miles from Canton, Hong Kong. 120 miles is far away back in the 1910. So he died. His father died so early that he can't even remember it. So he was raised by his mother. And at the age of 22, he made his way to Hong Kong and working in a store someplace. And he found out that the U.S. Navy was recruiting stewards to serve aboard ship. And he had an older cousin who was in the Navy, a couple of years older, and he said, "Yes, great." So he joined the Navy in 1932 at the fantastic monthly salary of $21 a month.
$21.
He served on gunboats and cruisers along the South China Seas. And when the war started in 1941 December, he was still in the Navy, having served 8 years. And the Navy left China, fled to the Philippines, and of course to Australia when Japan conquered the Philippines.
So Jim, let me clarify. So when World War II broke out, your father was already in the U.S. Navy.
1932.
I see. Yeah. So how old were you at the time, and how many siblings did you have at the time, and what it was like for your mother and your siblings during the war when your father was out in the sea during the battles?
Yes, I've done research on this. Now that he has a big, fantastic salary of $21 a month U.S., which exchanged to Chinese dollar back of 20 to 1. His mother found him a wife 4 months later in September. It was an arranged marriage, so he had to return to the village and marry her. They never saw each other until the day of marriage. So when the war started, I had two older brothers. They were about 12 years old and 9 years old. And my sister was about 6 years old. So when the war started, I was only 8 months old.
Wow. So you were a baby at the time. Yeah.
So when he left for the war in the Philippines and Australia, my mother was totally cut off financially. And we had no money to live off. We were still in Hong Kong. We moved back to the village for safety and to live with my grandmother who was still there.
So when the Navy went to Philippines, you were sort of cut off from your father.
Oh yes, I mean we were at war with Japan, and Japan cut off all mail or any paychecks back to the American dependents there.
Yeah. How did your mother and your family manage during those difficult times?
Those were horrible 4 years of starvation and poverty. We were very poor, coming from an agricultural family. Mm-hmm. So my mother had to borrow money from. My mother found out that the Swiss embassy in Macau, which is a Portuguese colony, in a neutral, on a Swiss embassy there was lending money to American servicemen. And so she went and found some documents that she borrowed $162 over a period of a couple of years. And that was enough for us to.
Wow. Yeah.
$162 is probably worth $10,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
1942 to 45.
So which county is the home village?
Yes, we're from Yenping County, which is part of the state of four districts along the Pearl River Delta.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happened to your father at the end of the war? How did you get reunited?
Well, we were now living in an apartment in Macau, and my father found out among the Chinese community. You know, that's a small world. I even have his naturalization certificate here. My father, the war ended in August 1945 when we dropped the atomic bomb. And he got his citizenship in November of 45, just a few months later, aboard a warship in Shanghai, China. Up to this time, my father had never come to the U.S. before. When he joined the Navy, he could only serve in China. There were no guarantee of any career, 20-year retirement with pension. There was nothing. There was no guarantee of anything. So the silver lining of World War II was that Congress had passed a law that you had served in the military, that you became a U.S. citizen. And our family, along with 13 other families, came same circumstance. These were sailors that joined in Shanghai or China or Hong Kong. And they all came to Berkeley after the war between 1948 and 1960.
So how did your father decide to, to join U.S. To choose U.S. citizenship and choose Berkeley as a destination for your family?
Well, he was still on active duty when we came to America in December of 1948. And by this time, he had 4 sons and 1 daughter. He was still on active duty, and we were his first station was back to San Diego Naval Base. We lived in Coronado. We lived there. So my 2 older brothers were starting high school, and he was thinking of college, because the main reason was to come to the U.S. for better education for his children and to make a decent living. We found out from the San Diego folks that University of California at Berkeley was the #1 school even back in the 40s and 50s.
Yes, go Bears.
And the amazing thing was that it was free. All you had to pay about $20 enrollment fee and no tuition.
That's right. Free tuition
For residents.
Yeah,
for residents. What a concept! Yeah.
So after 3 years in San Diego and my 2 brothers starting high school, he asked for a transfer, and of course he got up to the San Francisco Naval District. And he found it, and we lived temporarily on naval housing, and we finally bought a home in Berkeley, on California Street and WWII. And as my brother Floyd had said, that he wanted a home that's close to Berkeley High School and UC Berkeley. And sure enough, we bought a home there for less than $20,000. And that home is now worth $1 million.
Yes, yes. So how many years did he serve after war, and when did he retire?
My father joined in 1932, and 20 years later, now that he's a U.S. citizen, he's allowed to have retirement at full pension, 50% of his last salary. So he could have retired in 52, but yet he couldn't because the Korean War was erupting right from 1950 to 54. So he was forced to serve 2 more years, and he retired in 1954. And during the Korean War, he served on troop ships, sending Army Marine airmen personnel from San Francisco to all the way to South Korea.
So when your family came to Berkeley, what did your mother do? You mentioned that she only had limited education. However, all your children went to college, many with advanced degrees. Did she put a lot of emphasis on education when you were growing up?
I think between my father and my mother was the glue to the family. She really struggled during those 4 years trying to find food and shelter and clothing for us. So she's a very strong woman. And when she came, she had very little education, probably less than 4 years. My father had probably 6. And she admitted that she was a lazy student. She didn't like school. And she said, I get along, and yeah, she never learned English. But when she watches TV, because she's been here so many years, she can understand the plot. Her favorite TV show was I Love Lucy. So
Right.
once we were old enough to be on our own, like from 6th grade on, she became a seamstress at many Chinese sewing factories in San Francisco and Chinatowns. So it was also a social outlet for her to talk and meet with other Chinese families.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to say one thing. After my father retired as a civilian, for about a year, he found a job as a civilian cook for restaurants along Shattuck Avenue. But after a year, he kind of didn't like it. And guess what? He went back to the Navy and became a civilian cook at the Chief Petty Officers Club on Treasure Island. And he was there until he retired when he reached 65.
Wow.
So
Easy.
22 years active duty in the Navy and 20 plus years with the Navy. He had over 42 years of service in the Navy. And my mother, being still a Navy dependent, went to the Navy commissary and the Navy exchange. And as I was contract with kids, they wanted me to save me some money, 25% off for beef and steaks and groceries. He said, Mom, relax, take it easy. We're earning good money now, so just enjoy yourself. And, don't stress about groceries.
So you also mentioned there were certain Chinese family, the similar Navy experience,
Yes.
who all came to Berkeley.
Yes, because of the school and the university.
So do you live near each other? Do you have there's a kind of a community? Do you play with other kids?
Now that growing up from grade school up to high school, yes. From 1950 until they died, these 13 families would get together every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they went through a horrible experience. The ladies would play mahjong, from afternoon till past midnight, and the men would be in the garage sipping beer, whiskey and telling war stories and thinking how lucky they were to survive. And of course, the children were playing, running around the backyard, front yards, and so forth.
That's very nice. You have some friends who also speak, Cantonese with you.
There's also a combination of Cantonese and Shanghainese.
Okay.
Because half these families are from the Shanghai area, and half of them are from the Hong Kong area.
Okay. Yeah.
And you see the movie Toilet Club,
Mhm.
movie 10, that book and the movie. Our 13 families were just like what happened there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think you also joined Navy yourself, right? Tell us a little bit more about that and your career after you finish your military service.
As I mentioned, my three brothers did attend UC Berkeley, but I went to San Jose State. I had a 2.9 average at Berkeley High School, and I couldn't get in because in 1960 you needed a B average. I think calculus and physics was my weak points. But anyway, I did finish at Berkeley High, San Jose State, got a BA in chemistry in January 1965. And 1965 was the first year that the Vietnam War really started. And the government was sending by the tens of thousands to Vietnam every month. So ironically, the Vietnam War in 1965 was just 20 years after the end of World War II. I mean, just 20 years later. And so with my degree, the Army was going to draft. I got a job as a chemist for about 3 months. And then I got a draft notice from the Army. the Army was going to draft me, and we went to a pre-draft physical, where hundreds of us went to Oakland Army Base at 8 in the morning, and the doctors examined us, the optometrists examined us, the dentists examined us, and the hundreds of people that showed up at 8 o'clock dwindled to probably 75%, because the other 25% were either married, had a job deferment, or they were in graduate school or in college. So right then and there, I had to. I didn't want to go as a enlisted personnel, enlisted soldier in the Army, and I went to the Navy recruiter and told them about me, and they said, "Yes, we'll take you and commission you as an ensign after 18 weeks of training at Officer Candidate School Navy." And when they heard that my father was a retired chief petty officer in the Navy, he said, "You're one of us." So after I got commissioned, I was a supply corps officer, and I served. It was a 3-year application. I served all those 3 years on a Navy ship, on a repair ship.
Which theater?
I was on a USS Delta, which is a repair ship, and the repair ship does maintenance for all the Navy ships. We were stationed in Alameda, California, and we went to Western Pacific, Philippines, Japan, and Taiwan to support the war effort from 1965 to 68. And we went all down to Long Beach and San Diego and Seattle.
So what did you do after the Navy service?
Right. So after 1968, I came back, and I later went back to graduate school to get my MBA from Cal State Hayward. And after that, I got a job at Lockheed Martin, Sunnyvale defense contractor, as a subcontract administrator for those 28 years, working on anti-missile defense programs, surveillance, satellite surveillance programs, space shuttle, safe space telescope, many NASA programs. So I retired after 28 years at the age of 65, the same age my father retired.
Well, thank you, Jen, for sharing your family story and your own contribution to this country. Thank you.